Agricultural husbandry essentially maintains the balance of bound nitrogen. The agricultural working people should be imbued with a thoroughgoing faith in socialism and steadfast anti-imperialist and class consciousness so that they can regard our style of socialism as their life and soul, love it ardently, and fight staunchly against the imperialists' moves for ideological and cultural infiltration. Agricultural practice served Darwin as the material basis for the elaboration of his theory of evolution, which explained the natural causation of the adaptation we see in the structure of the organic world. That was a great advance in the knowledge of living nature. Every successful organization has to make the transition from a world defined primarily by repetition to one primarily defined by change. This is the biggest transformation in the structure of how humans work together since the agricultural revolution. Throughout Africa, as in much of the world, women are responsible for tilling the fields, deciding what to plant, nurturing the crops, and harvesting the food. They are the first to be aware of environmental damage that harms agricultural production. Sheep farming is heavily subsidized in Great Britain. Without the subsidies, the green grazing in the valley of the river Exe would be gone. The handsome agricultural landscape of which the British are so proud, carefully husbanded since Boudicca's day, would be replaced by natural growth. The most likely growth is real estate developments. I am no party man in this matter in any degree, and if I have any objection to the motion it is this, that whereas it is a motion to inquire into the manufacturing distress of the country, it should have been a motion to inquire into manufacturing and agricultural distress. I grew up in a very racially integrated place called Pottstown. It was an agricultural/industrial town which has since become a suburb of Philadelphia. I grew up basically in a black neighborhood. I have a long attention span, and I am also a good scientist, and there are a lot of problems that remain in the organic agricultural movement that the government does not invest in solving. I was an organizer in the Food, Agricultural and Tobacco Workers Union down in North Carolina. We are aware that many national farm organizations are putting forth various plans to provide both short and long-term relief to our nation's agricultural producers. While we believe long-term solutions are essential, the current situation demands a more immediate response. This is an exciting time for farmers and ranchers of all types and sizes as agriculture is a bright spot in the American economy. In 2011, agricultural exports hit a record high and producers saw their best incomes in nearly 40 years. The most difficult thing for us to do is to mitigate and offset our agricultural emissions. If we find a way to do that, then we're showing other countries how to do it, too. One good thing about California is we have quite a broad-based economy. We provide more fruits and vegetables and produce to the United States than any other state. So we have actually the single largest agricultural sector in the country. If you were just intent on killing people, you could do better with a bomb made of agricultural fertilizer. The correlation between poverty and obesity can be traced to agricultural policies and subsidies. In Japan, the average age of agricultural workers is 65.8. When the aging of its population is accelerating so rapidly, it will be very difficult to sustain the sector whether we liberalize trade or not. In 2011, agricultural exports hit a record high and producers saw their best incomes in nearly 40 years. As an integral part of the Department of Agriculture, the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service monitors our nation's agriculture to protect against agricultural pests and diseases. I got a cable from New York saying that what I'd written about the growth of Soviet agricultural production didn't make sense because the same levels were reached under the Tsars. I wanted to confirm it, but by then the censors were on to me. Mankind had the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and now this third one, the information revolution. The wealth of South Florida, but even more important, the meaning and significance of South Florida lies in the black muck of the Everglades and the inevitable development of this country to be the great tropic, agricultural center of the world. Security for agriculture merits serious concern by not only the agricultural community but our nation as a whole. The risk to the U.S. food supply and overall economy is real. Your future is still before you. Your land is a vast storehouse of mineral and agricultural wealth awaiting further development for the benefit of mankind. Its potentialities are magnificent. The United States as we know it today is largely the result of mechanical inventions, and in particular of agricultural machinery and the railroad. We have a strong agricultural heritage in Kansas. Many of the mainstream agricultural scientists, especially at the agricultural schools, but at all of our major universities, are tied into all sorts of contractual relationships and consulting relationships with the life science companies. Peasants, who after the liberation of the country became the masters of their lands and their country under the benevolence of Comrade Kim Il-sung, launched the campaigns for increasing agricultural production and donating cereals out of patriotism, and thus faithfully supported the party's line of nation building. A country that cannot feed itself cannot have self-pride, and in the mid-60s 20% of all the wheat produced in America came into India. We were agriculturally a basket case. And 15 years later, 20 years later, we have become an agricultural power. This is the famous Green Revolution. I have seen firsthand that agricultural science has enormous potential to increase the yields of small farmers and lift them out of hunger and poverty. In every walk of life, you must have leaders. An education in the spiritual world, in the labor field, in the agricultural field, we must have leaders. The administration's attempt to keep us from selling agricultural products to Cuba is an outrage. Cuba is not a threat. That is why we must do more to open Cuba, not less. U.S. agricultural products, including safe, high-quality Montana beef, face unscientific trade restrictions in many important markets. By furthering the use of ethanol, farmers are presented with the opportunity to produce a cash crop by collecting their agricultural wastes. The EU imports more agricultural goods from developing countries around the world than does the US, Canada and Japan, combined. There are two major challenges before Indian agriculture today, ecological and economical. The conservation of our basic agricultural assets such as land, water, and biodiversity is a major challenge. How to make agriculture sustainable is the challenge. I wish every international or national corporate would be given a rule to set up companies in rural areas, where they would have to provide hospitals, schools, low-cost housing and free medical care, training, and then employment, but not on agricultural land. Places that have become agricultural deserts, trashed by giant corporations, could be reforested, drawing carbon dioxide from the air on a vast scale. The ecosystems of land and sea could recover, not just in pockets but across great tracts of the planet. Texas and America's farmers are suffering. As the member of Congress representing the 10th Congressional District of Texas, I have traveled throughout our area and have seen firsthand how the drought has affected our agricultural communities. People forget that a huge proportion of our jobs still depend on agricultural production in Australia, so of course there are exports. That's easily overlooked. As a Californian, I feel lucky to live in what is truly the Golden State, a place of sunshine, agricultural bounty, natural beauty, technological innovation, and boundless optimism. We need to transform our rural areas, restore the land to its rightful owners, and significantly grow our agricultural output. Supposedly, summer vacation happens because that's when the kids are home from school, although having the kids home from school is no vacation. And supposedly the kids are home from school because of some vestigial throwback to our agricultural past. I'm not an extreme tree hugger. I do believe trees grow and are a useful agricultural product that can be harvested without damaging the ecology and wildlife. Whenever, then, the usual and ordinary rate of the profits of agricultural stock, and all the outgoings belonging to the cultivation of land, are together equal to the value of the whole produce, there can be no rent. Take ice. Ice is fascinating to me. Ice is the one thing in our world that went from an agricultural product to being manufactured. Why in almost all societies have married women specialized in bearing and rearing children and in certain agricultural activities, whereas married men have done most of the fighting and market work? Our agricultural economy in the Hudson Valley continues to face historically low prices and producer income, as well as losses due to weather and other disasters. The condition of the tribes which occupy the country set apart for them in the West is highly prosperous, and encourages the hope of their early civilization. They have for the most part abandoned the hunter state and turned their attention to agricultural pursuits. I believe that agriculture land, productive agricultural land with water on site, will be valuable in the future. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.